Robyn Steward and I am 32 years old. I'm autistic and I have 9 other disabilities. I'm a musician and I'm also a researcher and an author. I used musical keys services to help me learn to talk when I was small. I was born in 1986 and a very early musical keys group was set up in Diss and I attended there with my mum. And music was a thing that my mum found that I would engage with. I wasn't really interested in people until my mum started playing the guitar to me. And so she tried to get me to do as many musical activities as possible because it would help me to communicate. I think that my parents put an emphasis on communication rather than speech because not everybody finds speaking easy, and there are many other ways to communicate, and probably the quality of the communication and what's conveyed is more important than whether you can say the word ball, for example. Music is so important to me. So for a long time, I just taught people about autism, and that was what I did. And then I started to be able to earn money as a musician. And I played with Andy Diagram, who is a trumpet player from the band James, who were quite big in the 90s. I've also spoken on a panel about neurodiversity in music at the South by Southwest Festival. And for me, music gives me not only the ability to communicate with others, but it also opens the door for interaction with other people. I find that it's much easier for me to interact with people through music, and so music is so important to me. Certainly for myself, music is incredibly important for my mental health and for my well-being, as well as the ability to communicate. Obviously, autism is a spectrum. Everybody is different and they're going to have different challenges and different abilities and different things that they're interested in. But I think that music can be a very powerful tool for helping people with disabilities to feel, firstly, that they are in control of something, and especially if you're in a situation where you have a lot of care, it can feel sometimes that you're sort of out of control because you're just going through this sequence of appointments and procedures and things like that. So I think it's really valuable, from that point. And I think also the work that like the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital are doing and Drake Music, their work enables more people to be able to access music. And I think what Musical Keys does, which is really important, is it brings music to everybody, and there isn't any kind of barrier about, it's just for these people. It's for everybody, and it joins people together, whether you're in the early stages of your life or the later years of your life. I think that bringing people together and communicating is really important. So autism is sometimes described as a social communication disorder or condition, and what that means is that a person might struggle to communicate, and that could be like having a conversation or explaining what you want. But it can also be about reading body language and making sense of information, or taking things literally, or like reading people's body language. So it's really quite wide, and I think the thing about music that can help people is that it puts everybody on an equal playing field, and it also allows for development of communication skills in a really safe but meaningful way. And I think that is really positive. And I think you can work in lots of stuff like PECS, for example, the picture exchange system, and also Makaton. And you can work in communication tools that can then be used outside of a music session. So, for example, you might be doing a song that's, about biscuits, and you learn the Makaton sign for biscuit. And then once you learn as a young child, if I sign biscuit, sometimes I get a biscuit, or, you get a response from it. There's a back and forth that is meaningful to that person. I think that can be really beneficial. And I think that particularly when you're first learning to communicate, especially if you have sensory challenges, and it can be overwhelming and difficult to know what to attend to, like different, where to put your attention, and also knowing what's going to happen next. Like, if you struggle to predict what's going to happen next, then the whole world's is big, full of surprises, and sometimes that can be a bit overwhelming. I run a project in London called Robyn's Rocket, and it's an inclusive conscious gig. So rather than being specifically for a particular group of people, like people with learning disabilities or autistic people, it's for everybody. But it uses tools which will help everybody. So if people don't speak English as their first language, for example, each artist has a colour and a shape which is reflected on the timetable, the stage and the merchandise table. So you would be able to have the whole interaction, if you like, without needing to be able to say their name or read their name. We also have communication badges with a rocket, which you point upwards if you want to communicate with people, downwards if you don't want to communicate with people, or sideways if you just want to communicate with people you know. So that can be quite important. So Robyn's Rocket is, it's a gig, and we have 3 or 4 acts, and I play a lot of trumpet and host it, and it's at Cafe Oto, and you can find out more at robynsrocket.com. Also, I wanted to talk a bit about my family. Maybe some of you watching this will have had sort of similar experiences. My mum and dad tried really hard to have a baby for quite a long time, and they had a number of miscarriages. And when I was born at 28 weeks, so I was born really early. And I think that, then I was in the hospital for 10 weeks, and I think that that's probably difficult for any parent. And I think that sometimes, because everything happens so fast and is so intense, I think sometimes parents don't get the chance to reflect on what happened, and I think it's okay to say, actually, I need to take a minute to just talk this over, or to just think about it. I don't suppose that most parents think, oh, I'm going to have a child with special needs, and then suddenly you're sort of thrown into this world. And for me, as somebody with special needs, I'm kind of lucky, because I've grown up with knowing I had special needs, and it's not such a big deal to me, because it's all I've ever known. But if you're a parent, and maybe you have other children, or maybe your friends have kids, and your child develops differently, I know that sometimes that can feel, can be difficult. Maybe you feel that you can't go to the same events as your friends with their kids. And what I'd say to you is just find your tribe, find people that understand you and your child. And I think it is possible to find both. And I think what Musical Keys can do is bring people together. And that's not just the kids, it's the adults too. I think that, my parents, they talk fondly of Musical Keys. I think they got something from it, even if it's just that they could see me enjoying something when, it was quite difficult for me and them. And so I think having something that was just such a leveller was really important. Anyway, I'm a really big fan of Musical Keys, and without them I wouldn't have been able to learn to speak. I think what they do is incredibly important, how they work from almost cradle to grave. They work with very young children and older people and people with learning disabilities, and they make a massive impact on people's lives. So if you're looking for a charity to donate to that's going to make a massive difference, Musical Keys is a good charity to choose. Thank you.